Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery here. Today's video is a Q&A session. A couple months ago now, I actually posted a post on my Instagram account just asking if people had questions, things that I could go over in a video. I'm just now getting to it because of life events, but I did want to be able to answer the questions and at least help, get some information out there. Maybe you're struggling with the same things as well, and this can help you out. With that being said, first question here, it says, I'm in the market for new bowstrings. I see a lot of different companies use different materials. In your opinion, what's the best string material, BCYX, Fury, VTX, or 452X? Personally, I like BCYX material. I'm a longtime user of the BCYX 452X, and that's an amazing material. It's very durable, and you're not going to really see any kind of stretching with it or anything crazy happen from it when you're going into extreme heat or anything like that. So great material, and you're definitely not ever going to go wrong with that. I'm using BCYX because it's a little softer on the shot, and that's really the only reason. I see the performance is roughly the same. The way that it doesn't stretch, it doesn't creep, it doesn't have anything bad happen to it when it heats up, that's the same as well for me. The only thing that's different is at my shot, I don't get the same buzz and vibration and harshness that I get with 452X on my target rigs. BCYX seems like it softens everything up a little bit, takes a little bit of the vibe out, and that's what I personally like. Colors on it are really great. It's also really easy to find. In fact, Twisted X Bowstrings, personal string company of mine, channel sponsor of ours as well. That's who builds all my strings. That material and then the new BCYX Mercury is all he uses. He's done a lot of testing on that, on Fury, 452X, 8190, all of that stuff, and those are the only two materials he will use because he knows that he's not going to have any problems with the strings later on. Alright, second question here, what's the best stabilizer? It's kind of a loaded question. There's a lot of good stabilizers out there right now, so let me get more into looking at a stabilizer and how you should choose them, because that's probably a little bit better way to look at what you're doing and what you're getting. So probably Mint Target based off of the user on there and what I'm doing here, but for hunting and target both, hunting's a little bit different. You don't need the long stabilizer, you don't have the same things you're looking for on it. Just lengthwise, whatever you're needing, 10-inch, 12-inch, something like that along those lines are normally good for most people. Be able to put weights on there. There's a lot of good companies that make those. Really, when you get into the differences on stabilizers as far as materials and what really matters is on the target side, because you have longer bars. I would say the biggest thing to do when you're picking a stabilizer is get one that's going to be a good material. Get a good quality carbon that you're not going to have to worry about bouncing and swaying back and forth, because that can really mess up your aiming. And really what it's going to do in the most part is when you get to full draw and you bang against the back wall and everything is settling and you're trying to get ready for your shot and aiming on target, you're getting a lot of extra movement because those bars are bouncing just a little and moving around, and that just elongates your shot process, and you're going to wear down before you're ever able to get a shot off in an efficient manner. So quality carbon, stiff rods, especially if you're going to be using a lot of weight. I would say anything more than 5, 6, 7 pounds or ounces rather, anything more than that on the end of a long rod, you're going to want something that's definitely a stiffer carbon that you're not going to have to worry about bouncing or moving. Outside of that, there's people that build stabilizers that are made for wind or not, and just things of that nature. Personally, I feel way more movement on me and on my bow from wind than I ever do a stabilizer. I've taken a stabilizer completely off my bow to see what the movement felt like in the wind, and it was virtually the same. The overall weighting of the stabilizer and the extra weight on the bow, that will help you fight the wind, because more weight needs more force to move it, so that helps. But overall diameter of the bar, whether it be a wing shape or a circle, or if it tapers down, anything like that, I haven't seen as big of an advantage out of. There's other reasonings for like the tapered contour stabilizer, different things like that, that play in more so than the wind. So quality carbon, good materials. I personally chose, originally when I first looked at stabilizers, I chose Doinker because they send weights with their bars. When I bought the Doinker Platinum, I I got 7 ounces of weight. They're 421 weights that they put on with the bars. So that was just an added bonus for me. It was less weights that I had to buy. So that's something I got, and that was a reason behind what I chose. All right, guys, third question here. I see you enjoy the Hoyt. What holds you back from choosing Mathews, Elite, or Prime? I originally, when I first got into shooting, my first semi-serious bow that I bought was a Bear bow. After that, I got a Bowtech, and then after that, I went to the Hoyt. I chose the Hoyt bow because of the grip. I wanted the grip that felt the best in my hand, that would help me be most repeatable, and that's what really originally drew me to a Hoyt. Just holding them and their reputation and everything on that allowed me to be able to choose that. As far as the Mathews go, I've shot Mathews, you know, other people's bows that I've picked up and I've shot. I like them, but I can't get along with the grip. On their target line, it's just too vertical. I don't want to have to buy an aftermarket grip or build it up with Suger or anything like that. I just don't want to have to do that because I can find easier changing with my Hoyts and what I'm looking for on the shape and the size of the grip. Mathews hunting bows, the grips are too wide for me on the wooden grips. That's the only one that I've ever held. Other than that, I mean, that's kind of it. I mean, Mathews is a great bow, don't get me wrong. It's just me personally, for my hand shape and the way that I have to put my hand in a bow, I like the grip on a Hoyt better. Elite and Prime, I've not shot an Elite bow. I've held an Elite bow at my dealer here, my local dealer, and I like it. It's nice. I don't think that I would like shooting it so much. I don't like high let-off bows, so I think that wouldn't allow me to get along with it. With that being said, I have a good friend of mine here in Texas that shoots, that he went back to an Elite because he could not get along with another brand of bow, and he just gels with that bow. He went from shooting the best he ever had, switching brands, and then going right back to it and continuing shooting amazing. So good bow, different style of shot. My shot is way vastly different from his, and it just doesn't gel with it as well. On a Prime, never had a Prime, never shot one, never held one. None of my local dealers around here have them, so that's a big factor that holds me back from it. But I do like how they look. I've looked on their website, I've watched the videos on YouTube from them, and I like the way that they're built. I like, you know, the design of them, the cams. I think it would be a good bow. I'd like to hold one, I'd like to shoot one. I just don't have the opportunity around here, so that's why I stick with Hoyt. Alright, so this next question's kind of a touchy subject for me to have to answer. I'm going to give you my best guess on it and what I was taught, and I'll let the rest of it go for someone else. Confused about rear stab angles. Thought if you straightened it out, you got more leverage. Hence, if dot was low, it moved up. But heard D. Hauser say that his dot moves up if stab is angled down. What's going on? Alright, so on that, the way that I was initially taught and just looking at what I see on my bow, talking about your back bar on your bow, and if you move it down, the effective length from your riser to the end of the bar is shortened because you're moving it down, you're taking some of the leverage off of it. That makes it in turn act lighter, so you would see your dot, if you had a low dot on target, you could drop the bar and it would bring the dot up, is what people are saying. You know, that to me, that's what I found. That's what I do on my bows. If I drop the bar, it helps me take away leverage from the bow. I don't know on the video that D. Hauser made. I'm going to put a link to it in the description below because it's an excellent video. It was a two-parter. I'll put both links in there. That way you can go and watch it. I don't know if maybe he misspoke and got backwards, because Lord knows I've done that on my videos, or if that's what he's seeing. I could understand the basis behind it. I've never talked to him about it. I don't know, but I can understand the basis behind if you drop the bar down low enough, your center of gravity being lower on the bow like that, I can see how it would make it feel differently to drop the dot down. I have no idea. Definitely, I think you should ask him, reach out to him. He's very easy to get a hold of. You can message him on Instagram, DM him. He's very easy to get a hold of. He'll talk to you. He's a really cool guy. So I would ask him that personally, because you know it might be good curiosity to help you, or you know, find out his viewpoints behind it. My best guess, without talking to him, is lowering the center of gravity down with the weight changes how the bow feels in your hand. It might help it just make it feel a little bit heavier and drop the dot. That's my best guess. All right, the next question that I have here, I initially was going to answer a different way, so I'm going to just go ahead and answer it here, because I think it'll be good for a lot of people to see and kind of give an idea on what to look for. What advice would you give to those who are teaching themselves archery at home because of lack of finances to do otherwise? That's a really big one. I'm all 99% a self-taught archer. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of searching for, back then, at articles, trying to read things. Videos weren't really around so much at that point. There was some hunting shows that had some information on them that I watched and tried to learn from, and then just trying things, doing things. My background with it's a little bit different. When I came into archery, I was coming from a different sport that I had been taught different things in. So looking more at biomechanics for your body, how things work together, bone structure, stuff like that. I brought that over with me from archery, and that's really the basis behind what I did with myself. It was easy for me to understand. I was already doing it in a different sport, and I could apply that to archery. My biggest thing that I can say for someone at home is do your homework, you know, within yourself. Find out what works best for you. Read all you can, see all you can, get all the information soaked up that you can, and just try it. After a while, you'll start developing, you know, what works and what doesn't work, and you'll be able to, you know, use that when you read something. You can read something and say, okay, this didn't work for me last time, that's similar to that, I don't think it'll work for me, I'm not going to try that, but I'll try this. Or you can still continue to try everything. Outside of that, you need to build a solid shot execution. So build the steps up, whatever that may be. At first, it may be a very long list, but as you start to ingrain everything and roll through everything, that list will shorten down, and it's less and less to have to think of, and it really becomes just key points, and then the other things become automatic. I've done some videos in the past, I'll link it here in this one so you can go back and watch it, helping build shot execution, knowing what to look for in them, and that might help you on that. The other thing I will say is never stop working on shot execution. You can have subpar form, subpar tuning. If your shot execution is very solid, then you're going to shoot well. So that's a huge one. And don't get caught up on stereotypes on shot execution. A lot of people think that you have to pull and you have to be, you know, using back tension only to shoot a shot with a compound bow. And that's just not true. If you're a recurve shooter, it's different. You have to be dynamic more, and it's a different style shot. With a compound bow, the name of the game is staying as still as possible, and when you move, making the movement slow, deliberate, but just not exaggerated. So light pulls in the back, light expansion, you know, using some hand manipulation on a release of some sort, combining that together to where there's just not a lot of movement, because you're trying to stay as still as you can on target. Think of a precision rifle shooting versus a pistol, you know, shot. So, you know, with a pistol, you don't have anything to brace against. It's just not the same. With a compound bow, it's more like a rifle shot. You're wanting to try to aim on target and get the most precise aim that you can. That's why we use the long stabilizers. That's why we have releases, and that's why we have cams with let off and a back wall. Use all that to your advantage. That would be my advice for anyone that doesn't have the funds to get a coach. Outside of that, video yourself. Go buy a cheap camcorder that doesn't have to be expensive. Go to Walmart or something, buy a cheap camcorder. Use your phone. Pretty much any phone's going to film what you need, and it might even be better than the camcorder because you can slow it down and do some stuff with that and save it and look back on it. And then just get a tripod, a really cheap tripod, figure out a way to make it work and use that, because a lot of people will only film themselves when they're doing bad, try to see what's wrong with them. If you'll film yourself on your good days, you'll have something to look at and compare to on your bad days. All right, my next question here. What aiming drills do you practice, and how to have quality blank bail practice? Aiming drills. This is what I would do personally. This is what I recommend a lot of people do as well. Studying your float on target. So holding back at full draw at anchor without shooting your shot, and just watching what your float pattern does. You want to get used to what it looks like on a good day, on a bad day, and just kind of be able to see and be comfortable with it. Beyond that, you need to know timing for shot execution. You need to know overall timing. So, hey, if it starts to break down, I know what that looks like. I know what it feels like. I need to let down. Things of that nature. And then after that, when you're executing your shot, sometimes versus just worrying about what score you're going to get when you're practicing, executing your shot and watching what your pin or your dot is doing and what your float does. If you see changes in your shot, in your float rather, from your shot execution, then you need to look at that and see, okay, why is that changing? What am I doing wrong? What's going on there? And be able to take that and change it. Take it and if you're pulling really hard, or if you're pulling off to the sides, if your release, especially if you're using a hinge release, if it's rotated too far and you're having to pull kind of off to the side, or do too much movement with your hand, or vice versa. If it's too light and you have too much pressure on your index and not enough on the outside of your fingers, you'll get a wobbly float as you start to do your shot execution because you're not balanced in your hand. So stuff of that nature, that's what I would look for. I'll link a video here. You can go through and you can see what I do as far as my shot timing drills from a first person view. Got my camera pointed through my scope so you can see, and then I talk through what I'm doing. Done a video on that in the past a couple times, but it's some good information to go back and look at. Alright, my last question here. Different tuning methods you prefer. So there's a lot of different methods that I bring all together when I tune. I used to get caught up in really doing too much and trying too hard on certain methods. So that's the biggest thing that I'll say when it comes to tuning is don't get caught up on one method along the chain of all of them that you're doing. Don't spend too much time on them, and narrow them down to the ones that matter the most. When I first start with all my equipment, I'm going to take my arrows, I'm going to use them as bear shafts. I'm going to set my bow up my preliminary way that I'm always going to set them up. For me, it's a little bit different, but top cam on mine, vertical, and arrow rest basically in the center of the riser. Most people are going to want their top cam to where an arrow would cross at the string when laid against, or at the loop rather, when laid against the side of the cam. Arrow rest in the middle of the riser. That's just my preliminary setup, and then I'm going to shoot a bear shaft through paper. I'm going to see what I get. Now, all my arrow shafts that I buy are spine index, so the theoretical stiff side of the arrow shaft is marked on there. That's what I sit at a 12 o'clock position just to begin with on all of them. That's how I tune. If I notice that I'm getting a weird tear that I can't get out, or if I'm having to move things too much, then I'll start rotating that arrow around and seeing if I can change the stiff part of that arrow shaft to a different location and get a better, more forgiving tune. That's the first step. Once I do that, I shoot every single arrow that I've got all the same way through paper. I do this at 6 feet, so 2 yards, and I'm going to do that with every single arrow. Turn the knock, get everything shooting a bullet hole, and get everything matched up the same. That tells me that the arrows are all flexing out of my bow the same way, and when I go to tune my bow, I'm going to get a steady reaction out of all arrows, so I don't have to worry about it so much. It also shows me if I have just a bad arrow out of the group that I need to take out, maybe make that as a practice only arrow, or if it's really bad, just trash it. I'll always mark those so I know, hey, that's not my best arrow. Don't use that in a situation where I need a really good arrow. After that, I'm done paper tuning. Well, no, I take that back. I fletch my arrows, I shoot them fletch through the paper again. This does two things for me. I want to make sure the tear is consistent. It tells me if I'm getting vein contact. It also is going to let me know if everything is still flying out of the bow correctly. So I just do that, make sure that everything is okay, nothing got moved while I was fletching them, stuff like that. Mainly it's for vein clearance, especially on a blade rest, so I can see if I need to index my knock a little bit slightly different, and turn that cock vein a little bit left or right depending on the orientation of the fletching, and make sure that everything is okay. Make sure I didn't do too much offset on my fletching, something like that. So that's what I use there. After that, I go outside. I'm going to do French tune. I go to 20 yards, sight in, hit the middle of the target at 20 yards, go to 40 yards, shoot again. If I'm not in the middle, I move my arrow rest and start the process over until I'm dead set. 20 yards, 40 yards, everything is lining up in the middle. I'll go to 20 yards again. I'm going to shoot a fletch shaft, a bare shaft. I want to see where it's hitting. I want the bare shaft to hit just below the fletch shaft, and then I'll go back to 30 and I'll do the same thing. Most of the time I don't do 30 anymore. I used to do that all the time, but really what I'm looking for is for my bare shaft to hit below my fletch. That's the way that I personally like to start my tuning, because I know that I'm going to start getting the best tuning results the quickest. After that, I go to group tuning, and that's basically getting as far back as you can and still being accurate. I'm going to do a video on this coming up next Tuesday, so it's more in depth and I talk more on the process, but it's your most accurate distance that you can shoot, the longest, furthest back that you can, and then some arrow rest movements from there. There's a method to the way you're going to move your arrow rest, but that's the long and short of it, and that's what I do. After my group tuning, I shoot a fletch shaft and a bare shaft at 20 as a reference. I just want to see where the bare shaft hits, so if something gets changed later on, I can put it back. If I change strings, if I change arrows, whatever it may be, and then I'm going to either take a picture of that or write a note down in my notes for that bow. This is where the bow tuned the best, this is where I have it. And that's pretty much what I do for tuning. I don't get crazy with, you know, anything bare shaft tuning or anything like that. I don't delve in and spend a lot of time on anything. The most important part of my tuning process is the arrows that I knock index and spine index, and my group tuning. Outside of that, there's some torque tuning that I do just to help on forgiveness. I do a 2-stage torque tuning with my sight and my arrow rest. I've done an instructional video on that in the past, and I'll put a link for that in the description below. That way you can go back and reference it and see it as well if you want to. But that is what I do. Thanks for watching this video. Don't know how many of these I'll do. If you do have some questions, sometimes it is easier for me to just group them all together and answer them in video form like this, especially if you're going to be, you know, maybe asking questions on my videos on the YouTube channel. I try to get back and answer them all, but sometimes I can give a better description by talking. But hopefully we'll have some more of these. Keep an eye out Tuesday. This coming Tuesday, I'm going to have another video out, how to bare shaft tune, how to group tune, some things to look for on that. Going to continue to have some series coming out. I think the first series I'm going to do is coming back from a layoff. I want to make that more than just coming back from a layoff. I want that to be for archers that also don't get an opportunity to shoot very much, because I've been in that, you know, those shoes as well. So I want to make that helpful, and I want to make that a multi-part series, or just something that we look at and focus on each time and help building a new shot with that. So that's going to be outside of the Tuesday tip of the weeks as well. Thank y'all for watching again. I'll see you soon. Thank you.